All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ray Cross with AVCIA, and I'd just like to welcome you here for this session in the Marine Corps Theater this afternoon. Thank you for being here. Lieutenant Colonel Granero from the Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch is going to speak this afternoon. He's going to turn the floor over for a Q&A at some point. We've got two floor mics for your convenience right there. And without further ado, Lieutenant Colonel Granero. Thanks, sir.
All right, hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, sir, for the introduction. Like I said, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Scott Granero, and I am the director for the Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch, which is located up in Camp Pendleton, California. So if you ever have a chance to come up to Camp Pendleton, we're over in the 21 area, right next to the beach. So every day I get to go to work and look out and see the beautiful Southern California weather we have here. And again, can't complain about my job. So first off, I'd just like to say thank you for this opportunity to come up here and talk a little bit about the test branch and how we are looking towards the future in preparation for supporting the Marine Corps' current and future ground and amphibious combat vehicle systems, and also other capabilities that operate in the littoral environment. Also, I'd like to say thanks for everybody that's come out in the audience. I know that I'm standing in between you and going home, or I think there's a open bar maybe, or free drink at 15:30 today, so hopefully I won't take it too long. I will be cognizant of your time. So I promise I'll be quick, and we'll open up at the very end for some Q&A. With that, if there's any specific questions now, anybody want to ask, or if not, we'll go ahead and I'll kick off this brief with a real quick personal, just a personal story. So I lap moved into the acquisition MOS in spring of 2021, and at the time I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And I was in Manila at the time supporting exercise Balikatan. I then got an email from the Chief of Staff from Marine Corps Systems Command saying, hey, Scott, congratulations, you're going to Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch in Camp Pendleton, California. So as soon as I read that sentence, two emotional things happened to me. First off is I'm an East Coast guy. I actually grew up in North Carolina, and I always try to stay away from Camp Pendleton. So when I saw Camp Pendleton, I was a little excited, but also a little bit nervous about moving out here to Southern California. The second is I had no idea what Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch was. And, and I've been in the Marine Corps for a good while, and I didn't know. So like all good Marine officers and Marines in general, I did the first thing that whenever you don't know something about something, what do? You go and you Google it. So I Googled Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch, and I kind of read as much as I could as I was sitting in quarantine in the Philippines, and trying to gain up and get a good appreciation of what AVTB did, and how they supported the Marine Corps' developmental test and evaluation effort. So when I checked into AVTB in the summer of 2021, I really thought I had a good understanding of what we do on a daily basis within the test branch. But however, after 6 months of being in the branch, I quickly realized that wasn't actually the case. We do a lot more than just amphibious vehicle testing. So what I'd like to do today, and again, when I was asked by my boss to come up here and talk about AVCIA, I kind of sat and with my team and said, hey, the theme of AVCIA is, what are we doing to stay current and stay on par or in pace with the future threat. So my team and I, we sat down, we looked into the future and said, okay, what are we doing internal to our organization to prepare us for the future? And the purpose of today's brief is really what we as the AVTB is doing, and what we're doing is we're utilizing innovative and advanced technologies to create innovative ways to test Marine Corps' future capabilities that will be operating in the littoral environment. So, so now that you understand kind of what I'm here to do, I just kind of want to give you an overview of the mission of the Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch, and then kind of talk a little bit about some of the implied tasks that we pulled out of our mission statement. So for the AVTB, our main mission is to plan and execute developmental testing in support of the Marine Corps' amphibious and ground combat vehicles. So when I read that statement, the big important piece of that one is really plan and execute developmental testing in support of Marine Corps capabilities. And the most important piece of that one is to inform acquisition decisions. So at the end of the day, what our test branch looks to do is work with program managers across the Marine Corps and other DoD agencies to do developmental testing. And then that way, when we collect this data and we provide it to the program managers, they're making the very best acquisition decisions, because ultimately at the end of the day, the individuals who are receiving the gear are our warfighters, our Marines, who will be facing the future threat, and we want to make sure that what we do provide them is the best information for them going forward. So one of the implied tasks when we look at our mission statement is development of instrumentation and superior data collection capabilities. So sitting down with my team, one of the first things I did when I came on deck with Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch was I conducted a problem framing session or mission analysis for all the old school Marines or former military out there. But we looked and said, okay, we understand our mission. We need to understand what the problems that we're facing in the future. And one of our lines of effort was focused on development and kind of advancing our instrumentation and data collection capabilities. So over the past year or so, we've set out as a test branch to figure out ways that we can advance our instrumentation and data collection capabilities internal to the branch to support other programs, managers, and other organizations out there in the DoD. So I always like to start off and add this kind of the slide here, because this kind of, to understand where you're going in the future, you have to kind of understand your past. And one of the great things about Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch is that we've been a part of the Marine Corps' amphibious capability development since the 1940s. For those who don't know much about the amphibious tractors, but the vehicle itself was invented in the 1930s, 40s time period as a vehicle system that was meant to provide recovery capability in the Florida Keys and Florida's right after hurricanes. So the inventor, Mr. Roebling, was able to piqued the interest of the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps ended up buying the first generation, or what they call the landing vehicle track system. From there, during World War II, after many lessons learned from the island hopping campaigns from Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Peleliu, all the main battles that made Marines what they are today, we learned a lot, and a lot of those lessons learned came back to the test branch at Camp Pendleton, was implemented, tested, and then pushed back out into the fight. And ultimately, what I like to tell people is that the Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch, which, like I said, the organization is over 70 years old, was a key reason why the Marine Corps and our nation was successful in the Pacific Theater during World War II. After the war, the test branch continued to provide developmental testing to the Marine Corps' amphibious vehicle capabilities with the advancements in the 50s and 60s with the LVT-5, and then looking into the 70s and 80s with the Assault Amphibian Vehicle, the AAV that we know today. Also, we've had a huge part in the developmental testing of the Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle back in the 90s and 2000s, and then for present, we've been instrumental in the developmental testing and follow-on testing of the Marine Corps' new amphibious vehicle, the Amphibious Combat Vehicle. So, understanding our past, you can kind of see where our future is kind of leading us. As the Marine Corps kind of transitions into a more focus on a littoral environment, and we have this new challenge of operating in a contested littoral environment, and also looking at things like new operating concepts with Force Design 2030, Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations. Our branch is looking to continue to develop and be a part of the Marine Corps' future. And the reason I say that is because, again, when I look at my test branch, I see a lot of great things that are very similar to what the Marine Corps was seeing back in the interwar period, back in the 1930s, right before World War II. And again, it was the advancement in technologies and the development of amphibious vehicles that helped turn the tides in the Pacific and ultimately help win the war in World War II. So the same thing currently now is looking at the test branch, looking into what the Marine Corps' future, what our future threat may be, operating in a littoral environment. What can the test branch do, and how critical are we into the developmental testing of our future capabilities? So this slide right here, really, this is a great representation of our test branch because we support just about everybody in the Marine Corps enterprise, from the PEO, Program Executive Officer, Land Systems, which houses Program Manager Advanced Amphibious Assault Vehicles, PM Light Armored Vehicles, PMLAV, and also other program offices within the Marine Corps Systems Command we support with developmental testing. We also support organizations like Office of Naval Research and some of the Naval Warfare Information Centers in some of their testing efforts as well. And most importantly, we support the Fleet Marine Force by our testing efforts, because when we test, that information is then handed down through the program offices down to the Marines, who will ultimately be using those systems to fight our future threat. So one of the things that makes our branch really unique compared to a lot of other test organizations in the DoD is that we are the only certified amphibious vehicle test branch in DoD. We're also a unique mix of civilians, government civilians, contractors, and Marine amphibious assault maintainers and operators. So when you put all those together, we have a very unique capability that a lot of test centers do not have. Because not only do we have the years of experience through our civilian engineers and test and evaluation personnel, but we also have the operator experience from our robust capability from our Marine personnel that we have organic to the branch. So outside of that, when we really look at the test branch, we have a lot of capabilities that we have to offer to the Marine Corps, especially when it comes to testing capabilities in a littoral environment. So another thing that makes us really unique with AVTB is our location here in Southern California at Camp Pendleton. We do a lot of testing. Our bread and butter is really our water mobility testing. However, if you look at the map of Camp Pendleton, you'll observe that we have well over 18 miles of coastline for us to do surf transits, surf testing, and also open ocean testing. And when you look across the other side of Camp Pendleton, you'll notice that we have thousands of miles of terrain that we can do land mobility testing over as well. So as we start to look more to our littoral environment, we're also looking at other ways that we can do land testing, not only here at Camp Pendleton, but also places like Yuma Proving Grounds and 29 Palms, California. But one of the most important aspects, and we talked about it earlier with the test branch, and that is our instrumentation and data collection. Again, one of our lines of effort for the branch and how we see ourselves supporting the Marine Corps' future amphibious and ground combat vehicle and other littoral capabilities is through our advancements in our instrumentation and data collection. So one of the areas that I'm very proud of our organization for the efforts they put forth, but one of our number one areas that we do testing is in the surf zone. For those who have ever encountered the surf or been out to the beach, you can understand that it's a very chaotic environment. And a lot of times it's very hard to characterize the surf zone, especially when you are testing amphibious vehicles inside that zone. So within the branch, one of the things that our lab technicians who are actually here today have worked with our engineers is to develop a system, what we call the surf array, that helps us characterize the surf zone and actively monitors the significant breaker heights in the surf zone as our vehicles are going through test. In the Fleet Marine Force, or how we do a surf observation is normally you have a Marine NCO or staff NCO on the beach counting the number of waves and determining the wave height as it's coming in and the breaker period, breaker angle, and many other factors that helps us determine the significant breaker height of that wave. However, that's a one-time thing, and then you come back and you're constantly doing it. What the surf array allows us to do is have a continuous active monitoring of the surf zone, so that way when our vehicles are going through tests, we can understand what that vehicle is doing as it's going through that surf zone. The way we do it is we utilize, and if you look in the picture in the bottom left, we use pressure transducers every 100 feet along a 900-foot spool of wires that sends back data as the wave pressure is pushing down in the pressure transducer. It is characterizing the wave height as it's coming into our laptops. So when we add that to our vehicle systems as it's going through tests, outfitted with GPS receivers, we're able to overlay and see where that vehicle is, what that vehicle is doing in that particular, where it is in the surf zone, and then overlay it what is impacting based on the surf conditions. So these are things that we have done internal to the branch to advance our technologies and to help us provide the very best capabilities and information back to the acquisition decision makers. Because when you start looking at an amphibious vehicle, the surf zone impacts the performance of that vehicle greatly, and what better way to do to have that data to have a real-time active measure of what the surf is doing and provide that back to the decision makers. The next way that we have advanced our abilities within the test branch to give us better real-time data is through usage of commercial off-the-shelf still photography and videography cameras. So this is probably one of the more interesting efforts that our media specialists and our lab technicians within the branch have encountered, because this, when you go out and you see a vehicle that's been instrumented with all these camera systems, it's like walking onto the set of a Disney movie or a Hollywood scene. Because when you look at the vehicle, there's cameras not only in the outside of the vehicle but also in the inside. And the reason we do that is because most Marines are visual learners. I'm a huge visual learner. If I don't know how to do something, the first thing I do is I go to YouTube, I type in and I watch the video on how to do it. So it gives me a better appreciation of that instruction manual that I'm thumbing through and trying to figure out how to repair something. So the same thing with our camera systems. We like to outfit the vehicle so as it's going through tests, we're able to pull that data, those videos, use our GPS synced systems to be able to overlay it and be able to see through our video, trying to think of the right word here, through our video editing services to be able to see what that vehicle is actually doing when it's going through tests. Because when you read some of the data points that comes off, sometimes it's really good to see what is going on with that vehicle. Did it move to the right? Did it go to the left? What was that operator inside the vehicle doing? And one of the things that we utilize these camera for is to be able to identify all those things. And again, it helps give those acquisition decision makers more information for them to make better decisions going forward with our weapon systems. So again, within the branch, another area that we're looking at is as we start to look at additional capabilities, whether it be unmanned, underwater, subsurface type capabilities that may be tested in support of Marine Corps Forces on 2030s, we're also looking at other ways to make these systems more ruggedized so that way they can support, again, going and doing and testing in some of these very austere environments. Because if anybody's ever worked around the salt water, you know that I'm talking about when you're dealing with electronics and you're dealing with corrosion control. So very challenging going forward, and some of the things we have to face being in a littoral or an amphibious vehicle test branch. So in addition to the camera systems, I mentioned earlier about GPS receivers. Some of the other things that we implement onto the vehicles for instrumentation is our data loggers, GPS receivers, inclinometers. These are all things that we use to kind of characterize the performance of the vehicle while it's under test. What we've done in the past is we've utilized commercial off-the-shelf casings to be able to house these electronics. But again, some of the challenges you face, especially when you start dealing with prototypes and vehicles that may have to be submerged, then you start worrying about corrosion. You start worrying about water intrusion into some of these cases. And again, a lot of these were commercial off the shelf that we had to fabricate ourselves to utilize and put these electronics in. So these are some of the challenges that we faced early on. However, What we're looking at now going into the future is utilizing systems like additive manufacturing and our robust machine shop, which includes our water jet, our CNC lathe and mill shop, to actually create more ruggedized housing units for a lot of these electronics, and also mounts and brackets that we can employ in our vehicles. So going into the test, it makes our data collection better and provides our operators and our engineers better ways of instrumenting the vehicle to pull that information. So one of the things that has been kind of a new thing for me with additive manufacturing is with our test branch, we do have some additive manufacturing capability. And we don't necessarily test the additive manufacturing, but what we use it for is supporting our testing capabilities. So again, what we have identified, and I'll use this as a great example, is we were in the process of testing a prototype vehicle. And one of the things that we do as part of safety and acceptance for our vehicles is we have to determine, does this bilge pump work if it starts taking on water? Well, the design of the bilge pump output was not compatible to our testing. So we had to utilize our additive manufacturing capabilities to print out a connector, kind of an adapter for that bilge pump output, to hook it to our testing capabilities, so that way we could test the system to ensure that the bilge pump was meeting the requirements. So those are some of the ways that we used additive manufacturing to kind of advance our testing capabilities, and then again reduce the cost and schedule as we go forward supporting program managers, because again in the program manager world, we're always about cost and schedule and trying to do things quicker and faster so we can get capability back out to the warfighter. So this is one of my favorite things that my lab technicians and our machinist has been working on, and this is a data logger housing case that my lab technicians have created specifically for a special test event. So this housing unit, our guys looked at the system, and working with our engineers, they were able to design the system around some of the instrumentation that needed to go onto the vehicle for testing. So unlike using Pelican cases or any type of other commercial off-the-shelf cases, where it was kind of limited on your what could go inside based on dimensions, we were able to design through a computer CAD program, and was able to design this housing unit to fit not only the right size batteries, but all the instrumentation necessary to get the information we were looking for through the test. And again, as you can see, this is something that our engineers worked alongside our lab technicians. We were able to use the CAD program to design it, and then using our additive manufacturing was able to print it off, and in addition to that, make gaskets to rubber seals to make it waterproof, and again, specifically make it for testing in an austere environment. So again, these are things that we're doing internal to AVTB that is advancing our instrumentation and data collection in support of future Marine Corps amphibious and ground combat vehicle capabilities. And again, these are just some of the other pictures and examples of things that we are doing inside the test branch to kind of make things easier for us going forward for instrumentation. So one of the things far left where it says the sensor mount, whenever our vehicles go out in testing, we'll outfit and instrument it with a designed sensor mount that we able to design and build in-house to our test branch. With that, we're able to outfit it with cameras, GPS receivers, and our data loggers, and any other type of instrumentation necessary to characterize the performance of that vehicle as going through test. Another thing that you see is a data logger mount. Whenever we're doing data loggers, we'll input it inside the vehicle. That was actually built by our machinists to fit our data logger inside the vehicle seats inside the back of our amphibious combat vehicles. The other ones are just some other examples of sensor mounts that our Marines have made alongside our machinists to advance our testing capabilities. Again, there's a great pictures of some of those bilge pump mounts. Again, those adapters that were built specifically for that one test purpose. Again, highlighting our abilities to quickly design and get something through testing, so we're not delayed on ordering it designing it and waiting for that piece to come in, via FedEx or whatever the case may be. So again, in-house capabilities that helps us speed along our capabilities and testing schedule. So I threw this slide up here because one of the things that, as we start talking about AVTB and all the things we're doing, one of the things that I'm very cognizant of is that we don't know everything. And one of the things that, I reach out and every time I talk to somebody in industry or other government agencies, we're always looking at, what are some emergent littoral related test instrumentation or capabilities that are out there, specifically on the automotive side of the house. Again, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to advance our technology and our capabilities internal to AVTB in order to prepare ourselves for what we think may be on the horizon for testing our Marine Corps future capabilities. Okay. Also, when we talked about industry best practices, we know that there's many different ways, and again, we're always looking for more additional opportunities to learn and gain more information. And then again, one big thing for us is better ways of characterizing the surf zone. One of the biggest challenges that we face is because the surf zone is so chaotic, it's very challenging to be able to identify the littoral currents because they're ever changing. So things that we're looking for, to advance our capabilities is better ways of measuring littoral wave or currents. So that way, when we do provide additional information to the program managers that are overlaid with the test data, they're getting the best information possible to make those acquisition decisions. So I'll kind of wrap it up. I told you I'd be a little bit quick just because I know it's towards the tail end of the day, and I know I'm the thing standing between you and going home. But really just kind of a quick overview of, again, of the test branch. The way we see Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch is that we are the future of the Marine Corps' testing capability, right? As the Marine Corps begins to continue designing and implementing capabilities that are going to be operating in a littoral environment. When I look at our test branch, we are the perfect organization to carry that into the future. Just like our, back in World War II, with the many different types of LVT systems, that the test branch was taking lessons learned from operations in the Pacific, bringing them back to Camp Pendleton, redesigning a system, testing it, and then pushing it back out to the warfighter is something that we want and need for the future, and things that we as a test branch see ourselves supporting our program managers and other DoD organizations, and that's our contribution to keeping us on pace with the pacing threat in the future threat environment that we're going to see here in the near future. So I love this picture, because this kind of like signifies why I have one of the best jobs in the Marine Corps, and that is developmental testing of amphibious and ground combat vehicles. So that is one of our work boats that we utilize for our dive teams and then our safety boats. So again, they're out there doing low light testing, going out to one of the buoys out in the open sea right off of the coast of Camp Pendleton, what they call the Camp Pendleton Amphibious Vehicle Test Area. So with that, again, what better organization or what better job to have than be able to sit and watch a beautiful sunset in Southern California and knowing that you're a part of the Marine Corps' testing of its future capabilities. So what I'd like to do now is kind of open it up for any questions or any comments that may be out there. Again, this is my information. If you have any questions that you think of later on, please reach out. And also, again, if you go to our website in Google, or you go to Google and type in Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch, you'll be able to see our homepage and be able to get additional information about our test branch and what we do in support of the Marine Corps' amphibious and ground combat vehicle capabilities. So, floor is everybody. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, sir. Gidget Fuentes, writing for USNI News. Can you talk, you didn't address it, you mentioned it, but can you talk about the work that the branch is doing with regard to the ACB and helping the Marine Corps kind of move along on getting, tackling these surf zone issues that we've seen with this vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. So the question was, what are we doing as a test branch to support the Marine Corps, specifically Program Management AAV, in development of the of testing in the high surf zone. So that is something that we really care a lot about. The Marine Corps is testing and making sure that the system we feel is safe for the Marines to operate in. So we at the branch are working hand in hand every day to get out there and test our vehicles, to get it back into the surf for training and for deployment out into in support of the FMF. So again, it's something we do every day. We work side by side with the program office to ensure that what we're testing is testing to the requirements that we need to get the vehicle back into the water. So, yes, ma'am.
When you talked about like the instrumentation, the surf array, the cameras and the videos, are all those things kind of helping you go through that process to sort of see how the vehicle is performing in these different surf zone conditions and working with whatever changes or adjustments need to be made to the vehicle and operations?
Yeah, so what we do is we take that information that we pull from the surf array and all the data that we have from testing in the high surf, and we provide that to the decision makers. And again, all that data gets put into to include the video. And again, it's really to kind of help characterize that vehicle as it's going through the surf, kind of give a better understanding of what that operator is doing inside the vehicle, because the Marines who are operating a test are actually Marines that fall under the Amphibious Vehicle Test Branch. So all that information gets pushed back to the program office to help them make decisions on what's the next course of action. Is there any type of TTP development, tactics, techniques, procedures that we have to update? And again, this is all stuff that we work hand in hand with the program office to provide them that data, so that way they can work with decision makers in the Marine Corps to determine what's the next course of action for the vehicle system. So, any other questions?
Last call for questions. All right, Lieutenant Colonel Granero, thank you very much on behalf of USNI and FCA International. It was a real enjoyable session. Please join me in a round of applause for Colonel Granero.